2020 is finally almost over, and thank you God, because it was a huge bust. We all know the global pandemic put a real big fork in the road, but either way, baseball was still played, and we saw a few players break out even more. And to me, they are now classified as the most underrated players in all of baseball. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna break down every single player that, in my opinion, is up there almost to a superstar, but no one talks about them. So if you want to see part number 2, where we talk about the overrated players, that should be fun. Let's leave a like on this video. Let's try and get to 250,000 subscribers. We're so close. But without further ado, let's do it. The most underrated players in baseball. Let's talk about them. First up on today's list is apparently my mom, courtesy of Gibby on Twitter. Thanks, Gibby. Okay, all jokes aside, we are going to start the video with a bang because I am going to push all of my chips to the table. I am investing all of my money into this kid's stock. Brian Hayes, the third baseman of the future for the Pittsburgh Pirates. I think that he is going to be the savior for the Pirates, considering the last couple seasons have been pretty miserable. They're going to need him to be the player that he is projected to be. And in his first 24 games, he had 5 home runs, a whopping 202 OPS plus, and saved 4 runs defensively in less than 200 innings. I have not done this since Trevor Story before he was called up in his rookie season. I am investing all of my stock into this kid. He might be the most underrated player going into 2021. I can't believe how long it took for the Yankees to figure out that Clint Frazier is better at baseball than Brett Gardner, and it showed in 2020 because if we take a look at Baseball Savant, out of 16 categories, Clint Frazier was average or above average in 13 out of 16 in his last 108 games. Clint Frazier has 20 home runs, a near 850 OPS, and the reason why a lot of people said he wasn't an outfielder of the future is because of his defense. Well, in 2020 he improved it. He was in the top 82 percentile for outs above average. I am pulling out the advanced metrics today as well as some standard stats, but there you go. Clint Frazier, point blank, is underrated going into the next season. If I did not include David Fletcher in this video, I would all hope that you would unsubscribe and dislike, but luckily we remembered to include him as he is one of the most underrated players in the entire game. He has a career 10.3 K percentage, which means he never strikes out. David Fletcher had a 125 WRC plus in 2020, and he has proven to us that he can be an elite defender at second base, third base, shortstop, and be a pretty decent defender in the outfield. So if we're talking about one of the better overall players in baseball, even though he doesn't have the 40 home run pop, David Fletcher is going to be a mainstay in that Angels lineup unless they don't sign enough pitchers and they miss the playoffs yet again. Mike Trout has not been in the playoffs since 2014. I was still in college, okay? I'm a dropout. That should not be a thing. Right, let's stop talking about how the Angels are failing Mike Trout. That could be a different video for a different day. I could honestly talk about that for 2 hours. But moving on, a player that I refer to as Ed Luis Diaz in 2019 turned around his career in 2020 after everyone clowned on him. He was lights out. He had a 1.75 ERA, a 2.18 FIP, and an insane 17.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. That is legendary stuff. Now, of course, it was only in a 60-game season, but I truly think if Seth Lugo goes back to being the full-time closer, and now that the Mets have added Trevor May, if Edwin Diaz just has to focus on striking batters out as opposed to closing games out, he is going to be one of the better relief pitchers in 2021. I'm guaranteeing it. Trey Turner not making first or second All-MLB team in 2020 is one of the biggest robberies that I can remember. Either way, in Trey Turner's last 181 games, he has accumulated 233 base hits, 31 home runs, 47 stolen bases, and he's only been caught 9 times, and he has an 891 OPS in those said 181 games. Yes, we all understand that his defense needs improvement, but I'm saying this right now, as a shortstop, his power and speed combo is some of the best that we've ever seen. Trey Turner is no one to scoff at, but for whatever reason, the voters and the writers of Major League Baseball, they just don't give him his props. They don't respect him. I don't know why. It is very hard to live up to a Hall of Fame grandpa, but Mike Yastrzemski, he's doing that. In his first 161 games as a professional baseball player, he has 31 home runs, 90 runs batted in, and an amazing 137 OPS plus. And the crazy part is, now this is a small sample size, but Through their first full season of Major League action, Mike has been better than his Hall of Fame grandpa. Why did it take so long for the Giants to call him up? A lot of people still don't understand that Mike and Carl are two different baseball players. I actually had that happen to me. I was at Starbucks a couple weeks ago, and this guy literally thought that Mike was Carl and didn't know that there was a 2020 version of another Yastrzemski. Yes, he should be a perennial all-star, but instead, the Giants kept him down for so long. But hopefully, in 2021, he continues to break out and becomes a household name everywhere, and he's known for his play, not his grandfather's. Before the 2020 season started, I predicted that Dinelson Lamet of the San Diego Padres was going to be their most important player over Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis. And I was proven to be right, because in the playoffs, they needed Lamet's services more than Tatis and Machado, because if we take a look at the raw stats, Lamet had a crazy season, a 2.09 ERA, a 2.48 FIP, and an almost 12.5 K per nine. I'm telling you, Tatis and Machado are some of the best players in the game right now. But if Lamet is not the ace of the Padres going forward, I'm not sure how good they're going to be as a World Series contender. Hopefully Chris Paddock has a better season, but Lamet, he has to be the guy going forward, and in my opinion, he's gonna stay that way. This dude is nasty. Everyone get him on your fantasy team because he is legit. I don't care what names you bring up in the conversation of best left-handed hitters in baseball. You have Juan Soto breaking records and looking like the next Ted Williams in 2020. Christian Yelich in 2019, Cody Bellinger in 2019. I'm saying this right now. If you do not have Michael Conforto in the conversation for the elite left-handed hitters in baseball, just turn in your baseball card right now, because you don't know what you're talking about. In 2020, he had a 960 OPS versus right-handed pitchers. Now that's amazing for a left-handed bat, but he also had an 870 OPS versus lefties. And when you look at his career, he has a near 130 WRC plus. That shows right then and there that even though his defense can be good to average at points, he is one of the best hitters in baseball, and not many people put him in that conversation, but I'm here to tell you right now, he's going to get even better in 2021. A few weeks ago, I was talking about JT Realmuto and other people in the conversation for best catchers in baseball, and I forgot to mention Will Smith, but one of my followers said, hey, you should probably take a look at Willie because the dude is legit, and I kind of scoffed at it. I guess you could say I was a hater because I wasn't looking at the stats, but then once I typed in his name on Baseball Savant, my jaw dropped. Everything that you can see offensively is in the red. You want to be red. The only thing that's blue is his framing capabilities, and no one is saying that Will Smith is going to be the next Pudge Rodriguez as a defensive catcher. Will Smith, the hitter, not Will Smith, the pitcher or the actor, has 23 home runs and a whopping 146 OPS plus, and the cherry on top, he's in the top 78 percentile in all of baseball in sprint speed. So if you do not have Will Smith in your top 5 catchers, just like I didn't, going forward, you need to reevaluate your life and start educating yourself just like I did, because Will Smith, he's the real deal. It's crazy how a lot of people didn't know Zach Gallen before 2020, and to be honest with you, even though he had a pretty good 2019, I wasn't sure if he was going to be able to duplicate his success, and guess what? He did, because he set an MLB record with 22 consecutive starts to begin his MLB career without allowing more than 3 runs in a single start. In his first 152 big league innings, he has a 2.78 ERA, a 1.2 WHIP, and just last season, he finished in the top 10 for the Cy Young race in the National League. So Zach Gallen is going to be one of those starting pitchers that could break out even more in 2021 and might be available in the later rounds of any fantasy draft. So keep that name in the back of your head. Zach Gallen. If you see him and it's the 5th or 6th round, he might not go that late, but if you see him, pick him up. He's good. Earlier in the video, we talked about Mike Yastrzemski and how much pressure was on him to live up to the expectations of his grandfather, Hall of Famer Carl Yastrzemski. Well, the same can really apply for Alex Verdugo, not because he's related to Mookie Betts, but because he has to fill in the gap left in the Mookie Betts trade. Alex Verdugo was a star player for the Red Sox in 2020. Let's just get that out the way right now. He had a 2.2 WAR in just 53 games, and over his last 159 in right field, he has saved 21 runs defensively and almost has a combined 830 OPS. So yes, he is not Mookie Betts, but as a star player, a lot of people should put more respect on his name because they're trying to compare him to Mookie Betts. He will never be that, and I understand the frustration of Red Sox fans, but Verdugo 1000% is underrated going into the next season. Over the last few decades, we have seen some amazing shortstops in Major League Baseball, and if we're talking about 2020's sake, you could go with Xander Bogaerts, Francisco Lindor, Trevor Story, Trey Turner, and I guess Carlos Correa as well. He's pretty good. But one guy that has gotten better as the years have progressed ever since he was drafted #1 overall out of Vanderbilt is Dansby Swanson. As a shortstop, it is not easy to have an 800 OPS and elite defense all at the same time. Now, one thing I do want to point out, because to me, this is a big deal. Through 63 playoff at-bats where the pressure and the stress is at its highest, he has 11 home runs and 63 at-bats and a 913 OPS. If he can take that same mentality into the regular season and apply it to every single at-bat, watch the heck out. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be better than Xander Bogaerts, but I think that he can keep up with him offensively, maybe not as much, but he's going to be neck and neck with Xander Bogaerts. That's a lot of pressure to put on the kid, but I've seen him do it in the playoffs, so obviously he has it in him. Now he just has to do it for a full 162. Can we talk about how underrated Ian Happ is and possibly was the MVP of the Chicago Cubs? At least if we're not talking about Yu Darvish, Ian Happ was probably the second best player for the 2020 Cubs as a switch hitter in his last 115 games. The dude has 23 home runs and a crazy 130 OPS plus, where again, 100 is average. Now, his subpar defense does somewhat ruin his case for being one of the elite center fielders in all of Major League Baseball, but for some reason, with his speed and his power and his arm capabilities, he's a 3-tool athlete. If he gets the glove and the contact, he could be a 5-tool center fielder, and we don't really have too many of those. That's how good he can be if he reaches his ceiling. We haven't brought up a pitcher in quite a few players, so let's go ahead and do that right now. Marco Gonzalez, the ace, probably the ace of the Mariners going forward. I really like Justice Sheffield. He looked great in 2020. But right now, current day, Marco is their #1 guy. And in 11 starts for the 2020 season, he upped his K per 9 and only walked 7 hitters in 70 innings. That is crazy. He got his money and got even better, which I fully respect. The Mariners, with that outfield depth and their starting pitchers being young, they could be something special. Maybe not World Series contenders in the next 3 or 4 years, but projecting a decade, I think they might be good. And Marco Gonzalez, he's going to be a big factor in that. I could not be happier for our next player, Trent Grisham, because if we remember the 2019 playoffs, he was a lot of people would say he was the sole reason why the Brewers were not able to beat the Juan Soto-led Washington Nationals because of his error out in right field. And he proved that he's way better than that, because in 2020, he won a Gold Glove. He also finished with an 800 plus OPS. He had 10 stolen bases to only 1 caught stealing. Trent Grisham has so much money to make if he can live up to that 2020 hype going forward. He'll be a multi-millionaire, and he'll take care of his future generations for a while if he can play like he did in 2020, but for the next 10 years. Thank you all so much for watching. That is going to do it for today's video. Again, if you want to see part #2 where we talk about the overrated baseball players, let's try and get this video to 1,000 likes. Do not forget to subscribe because we're almost to 250,000. What even is that? Thank you all so much for the support. I appreciate every single one of you. Stay safe out there, and I'll catch you in the next video.